My husband said he loved me, then got my best friend pregnant. Reborn, I cut him off completely. Chapter 1: The Shattered Dream. It was a crisp autumn evening when Ethan and I sat on the steps of my family's estate, watching the orange and pink hues of the sunset. The world seemed to slow down, and for a moment, it felt like nothing could tear us apart. 8 years of dating. 3 years of marriage. Our love had been everything I had ever wanted. He was my rock, my constant. He had come into my life when everything else was uncertain, a boy from a modest background who defied all odds. We were opposites in so many ways. He was hardworking, humble, and fiercely determined. I was sheltered, the daughter of a wealthy businessman, used to comfort and luxury. Yet, somehow, it never seemed to matter. He made me feel seen in ways no one else had. Ethan and I met in high school. He sat behind me in English class, always scribbling in his notebook, lost in his thoughts. I noticed him instantly. He had this quiet intensity, the kind of person who didn't need to speak to be noticed. I admired him from a distance, too shy to admit that the boy with the messy hair and tattered jeans had stolen my heart. After the college entrance exams, it happened, the moment that changed everything. Under a sky filled with stars, Ethan stood before me, his hands trembling, his voice shaky but resolute. "Emily, be with me." I couldn't speak. My heart was racing in my chest, and my face was burning as I nodded, feeling the weight of that moment settle between us. The world seemed to fall away as we took our first step into something deeper, something more permanent. It was the beginning of everything I had ever dreamed of. We built a life together. From the moment he kissed me under the stars, I knew we were meant to be. Our love was imperfect, but it was real. It was all-consuming, and I believed with all my heart that it would never falter. But I had been blind, naive even, to what was really happening beneath the surface. Months passed, and things started to shift. Ethan's late nights at work became more frequent, and he started withdrawing from me in ways I couldn't quite understand. I ignored the subtle changes, convincing myself that he was just busy, focused on building his career. But deep down, I knew something was off. I felt it in the way he avoided my gaze, in the way his touch no longer lingered when we were alone. Then came the day that would change everything. I stood in the living room, staring at the man I had married, as he coldly delivered the words that shattered everything I thought I knew about love. "Let's get a divorce. There's only $10,000 left in our savings. I'll give it all to you." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. He stood there, unemotional, indifferent. His face was blank, devoid of any trace of affection. After all we had been through, after everything we had built together, this was how it ended? I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers. But instead, I stood frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. This wasn't the man I had loved, the man who had promised to always be there. This was someone else, a stranger in his place. "Ethan, what are you saying?" My voice trembled, the words barely escaping my lips. "What happened to us? To everything we built?" He glanced at me with a mixture of pity and something I couldn't quite place. "It's not working, Emily. It hasn't been for a long time. And there's nothing left to fix." The silence in the room was deafening. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of it. And then, like a cruel twist of fate, the truth came crashing down. Ethan's eyes didn't hold the same warmth as they once had. He wasn't the man who had confessed his love to me under the stars. No, he was someone different. Someone I didn't recognize. I couldn't even bring myself to ask the one question that was gnawing at my insides. Was there someone else? But, as if reading my mind, he answered anyway. "I've met someone else, Emily. He faltered, looking for the right words. Someone I'm not going to leave behind. The world seemed to spin around me as I processed his words. Someone else. The man I had built my entire life around had fallen in love with someone else, someone I knew far too well. It was my best friend. Suddenly, the past 8 years seemed like a cruel joke. All the moments we had shared, the promises he had made to me, now felt like empty words. I had been blind, believing that love could conquer all. But it couldn't, not when trust had already been broken. I stood there, staring at Ethan, my heart breaking in ways I didn't know were possible. Is it her? Is it Sarah? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Ethan's face tightened, but he didn't answer. The silence spoke louder than any words could. With my heart shattering in my chest, I made a decision. A decision that would change everything. I'm done, Ethan. I'm done with you. I walked out of the room, my world crumbling around me, but this time, I didn't look back. Chapter 2, The End of Us. I stared at Ethan, my husband, the man I had loved for so long, and felt as if the ground beneath me had been ripped away. The world was spinning, and I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't quite process. The man who had promised me forever was now standing before me, as if everything we had shared meant nothing. Let's get a divorce, he said, his voice cold and distant. There's only $10,000 left in our savings. I'll give it all to you. The words hit me like a slap across the face. The finality in his tone made my heart ache, and I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. Ethan and I had built a life together, shared dreams, fought through challenges, and made plans for the future. And now, after all of that, he was just letting go, as though I was nothing more than an inconvenience he wanted to rid himself of. What are you talking about? I stammered, my throat tightening. I searched his face for any trace of the man I once knew, the man who had held me in his arms and whispered sweet promises. But there was nothing. Just a stranger, standing there, indifferent to the devastation he was causing. His eyes didn't soften. They were flat, devoid of warmth or emotion. He didn't seem sorry. He didn't seem anything. I've been thinking about this for a while, he continued, his voice almost monotone. It's not working. You deserve better, and so do I. We both need to move on. I took a step back, feeling the weight of his words press down on me like a ton of bricks. Move on? From what? From everything we had? The years of love, of laughter, of shared moments? Was that all meaningless to him now? How could you say that? I whispered, my voice breaking. We were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. Ethan didn't flinch. We were. But it's over now. The finality of his words hit me harder than anything else. Over. As though everything we had built together was as disposable as a fleeting moment in time. I had spent years thinking I was in the most solid relationship, the one that would never break. And yet, here I was, standing face to face with the man I thought I would grow old with, and he was telling me it was over. Is there someone else? The question slipped out before I could stop it, my mind already racing with the possibility. Was this really just about our relationship not working, or was there something more? Someone else? Ethan hesitated for a brief moment, and in that silence, I knew. His guilt was evident, even if he didn't show it on the outside. It's complicated, he said, his words trailing off. I felt my stomach drop. It's her, isn't it? I couldn't bring myself to say her name, Sarah, my best friend. The woman who had always been there, always so supportive, so understanding. But in that moment, I knew she had been more than just a friend to Ethan. She had been his escape, his comfort. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Emily," he said, his voice tinged with regret, but there was no real sorrow behind his eyes. "But it has. And I can't undo it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had ever imagined. I had trusted Ethan with every part of me, and now he was telling me that he had fallen for someone else. The betrayal wasn't just with another woman, it was with the woman who had been my confidant, my closest friend. You've been seeing her behind my back?" I asked, my voice trembling. My hands clenched into fists, but the tears that threatened to fall were held back by a surge of anger and disbelief. "You've been lying to me all this time?" "I'm sorry, Emily. But this is how it has to be," he said, his eyes finally meeting mine, but there was no love in them, only coldness. I didn't know what to do, where to turn. The love I had for him felt like a distant memory, replaced by a sense of betrayal so deep that it was hard to breathe. Everything I thought I knew, everything I had built with Ethan, had crumbled in a matter of moments. He was no longer the man I had fallen in love with. He was a stranger, someone I couldn't recognize. And then, the final blow came. He took a step back, his face unreadable. "I'll give you the $10,000, Emily. That's all that's left. Take it, and we'll go our separate ways." The words stung, the finality of them leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. $10,000? After everything we had been through? After 8 years of love and marriage? He thought money could fix it? I stood there, staring at him, feeling the weight of the past wash over me. But in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't the same woman I had been when I first fell in love with Ethan. I had changed, and I could no longer let myself be dragged down by this man who no longer saw me as his partner. "Keep your money, Ethan," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was breaking. "I'm done." I turned and walked out of the room, not looking back. I could feel the weight of the world pressing against me, but there was something else, a quiet determination. I had to let go. I had to move on. And Ethan? He was no longer a part of my life. Chapter 3: The Betrayal. The door slammed shut behind me, and the silence in the house felt suffocating. Ethan's words echoed in my mind, replaying over and over again like a broken record. "Let's get a divorce," he had said. "There's only $10,000 left in our savings. I'll give it all to you." But those words were nothing compared to what came next, the truth that shattered everything. I stood there, in the middle of the hallway, trying to steady my breathing. My heart was still racing from the confrontation, from the shock of what had just happened. 8 years together, and this was how it ended? Without any fight, without any explanation? I had always believed in us. Ethan and I had been high school sweethearts, each other's first love. The night after our college entrance exams, I had been so taken aback when he confessed his love for me. "Emily, be with me." It had been the most beautiful moment of my life. That was when our story began. We had our ups and downs, like every couple, but I thought we were strong enough to survive anything. But now, standing in the wreckage of my life, it felt like all of that had been a lie. I took a few shaky steps into the living room and collapsed onto the couch, my hands shaking uncontrollably. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, and I reached for it, hoping for a distraction. But as I unlocked the screen, my heart sank. It was a message from Sarah. "Hey Em, can we talk? I know you're upset, but I didn't know how to tell you. I'm so sorry." The words were a punch to the gut. Sarah. My best friend. The one I trusted more than anyone. The one who had been there for me through every hardship, every joy. And now she was pregnant with Ethan's child. I dropped the phone onto the couch, my hands trembling. How could they do this to me? How could they betray me like this? I had given them both my trust, my love, and now they had thrown it all away without a second thought. I stood up and walked to the window, staring out into the darkened world. The city lights flickered in the distance, but all I could see was the image of Ethan, the man I had loved, and Sarah, the woman I had called my closest friend. They were together. They were building a life that didn't include me. The tears came then, streaming down my face as the weight of the betrayal crushed me. But beneath the sorrow, there was a growing sense of anger. I had been humiliated. I had been discarded without a second thought, and I had no idea how to move forward from here. Chapter 4: The Shattered Trust. The next few days passed in a blur. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. My world had become a place I didn't recognize, and I couldn't escape it. The silence in the house was deafening. I couldn't bring myself to confront Ethan again, not yet. Not after what he had done. Instead, I spent my days replaying everything in my mind, trying to make sense of it all. How could he have done this? How could he go from being the man who swore to love me forever to the man who betrayed me so completely? The answer was simple, but it stung. He never truly loved me. Not in the way I had believed. Not in the way I had given him my heart, my trust. And Sarah? The woman who had been my closest friend, my confidant? She was no better. How could she not have known how much I loved Ethan? How could she betray me like this? I texted Sarah, asking her to meet me. I needed answers, even though I was terrified of what she might say. My heart couldn't take another betrayal, but I had to know the truth. I had to hear it from her. We met at a small cafe, the place we had frequented for years. I sat at a corner table, my hands clasped tightly in my lap as I waited for her. When she arrived, her eyes were swollen, red from crying. She looked like she hadn't slept either. "Emily," she said softly, sitting down across from me. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that I had trusted her with my life, but instead, I remained silent, waiting for her to explain. "I didn't know when it started," she continued, her voice shaking. "I thought it was just a fling, a mistake. But then I found out I was pregnant, and everything changed. I didn't know what to do, Emily. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." "How long?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "How long have you two been seeing each other behind my back?" She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "It started a few months ago. We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did." The pain in my chest grew, each word from her cutting deeper than the last. How could she? How could she betray me like this? How could Ethan, the man I loved, be capable of such deceit? "I loved him, Sarah," I said, my voice breaking. "I trusted you both. And now you've destroyed everything." "I never meant for this to happen," she repeated, her tears falling freely now. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I don't know what to say." I stood up, the weight of everything crashing down on me. "You don't have to say anything," I said, my voice cold. "I can't do this anymore." I left the cafe, my heart heavy with grief and betrayal. But as I walked down the street, I realized something. This wasn't just about Ethan. This was about me. I had spent so much of my life giving everything to people who didn't deserve it. I had loved them unconditionally, but they hadn't returned that love. It was time to let go. It was time to take control of my life. In the days that followed, I took the first steps toward rebuilding my life. I filed for divorce, cutting Ethan out of my life for good. I had nothing left to give him, not after everything he had done. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I also cut Sarah out of my life. The betrayal from my best friend had been the final straw. I didn't want anyone in my life who couldn't respect me, who couldn't value the love I had to offer. And Sarah, despite her apologies, had shown me that she didn't deserve a place in my heart anymore. As I moved forward, I focused on myself, on healing, on rediscovering who I was without the shadows of betrayal hanging over me. I found solace in quiet moments of solitude, in taking care of myself in ways I had never prioritized before. It was a slow process, but it was mine to control. Chapter 5: The Beginning of the End. The days blurred into one another as I tried to piece together the broken fragments of my life. It wasn't easy. The betrayal had left scars that were deep and painful, but each day I woke up, I made a promise to myself: I would not let this destroy me. I would rise from the ashes like a phoenix and rebuild my life from the ground up. The divorce papers were signed, the house was sold, and I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. It was a modest place, nothing extravagant, but it was mine. There was something oddly peaceful about the simplicity of it. No more grand dreams or promises made in the heat of love. This was my new reality, one where I had control. For the first time in years, I didn't have to consider Ethan's needs, Sarah's feelings, or anyone else's expectations. It was just me now, and that felt like both freedom and a burden. I didn't know how to be alone again, but I was learning. Slowly, I started to find comfort in the quiet, in the small moments of peace that came from simply being by myself. But no matter how much I tried to distract myself with work, with late-night books, or random hobbies, my mind kept drifting back to the pain. The ache in my chest when I thought of Ethan's betrayal, the broken trust that would never be mended. The image of Sarah, once my best friend, and the betrayal from her that felt like a stab to the heart. I went to therapy a few times, trying to make sense of everything. How could someone I loved so deeply do something so cruel? How had I been so blind? But every session, every conversation, brought me closer to the conclusion that I had been a fool. I had given Ethan all of me, and he had tossed me aside like I didn't matter. And yet, there was still a part of me that mourned the loss of him. The man I thought I would grow old with, the man who had once promised to love me forever. But that was gone now. Ethan Carter was gone. And with him, the naive woman I used to be. One evening, as I walked through the small park near my apartment, I realized just how much had changed. The sun was setting, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange, and the cool breeze tugged gently at my hair. It was a peaceful moment, one that I hadn't allowed myself to enjoy in a long time. I sat on a bench, letting the silence fill my senses. My thoughts were quieter now, more controlled. I no longer felt the overwhelming sadness that had once consumed me. I had faced the truth about Ethan and Sarah, and while it still hurt, it no longer had a hold over me. The pain was there, like an old scar, but it was fading. I was moving on. It was in that moment, watching the sunset and breathing in the calm air, that I realized something important. Fate, cruel as it had been, had given me a second chance. A chance to start over, a chance to be reborn. I no longer had to be the woman who believed in love's promises, who put her faith in people who didn't deserve it. I would not let the man who betrayed me have any place in my life anymore. The more I reflected, the more certain I became. Ethan's love had been conditional. Sarah's friendship had been a lie. They had shown me who they really were, and now I knew better. The past was behind me. It was time to move forward. That evening, as I walked back to my apartment, I made a vow to myself. I would never let my heart be so vulnerable again. I would learn to love myself first, to prioritize my happiness. I would focus on my goals, on my growth. I would build a life that was mine, and only mine. There would be no room for Ethan. No room for Sarah. The days following that realization were filled with small victories. I focused on my career, dedicating myself to my work like never before. I started attending art classes, something I had always wanted to try but had never made the time for. I began to enjoy my own company, discovering new passions and interests that had been buried under years of compromise. But more importantly, I found peace. I stopped comparing myself to the person I had been when I was with Ethan. I stopped questioning if I could have done something differently. I stopped wondering if I could have fixed it. The truth was, I had given my all, and that was enough. I had loved him with every fiber of my being, but that love had not been returned. And that was okay. One afternoon, as I was leaving work, my phone buzzed with a message. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should even look. But curiosity got the best of me, and I unlocked the screen. It was from Ethan. "Emily, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to tell you how sorry I am. Please, can we talk?" I stared at the message, my heart still raw but stronger than it had been. I felt a sense of calm wash over me. This was the moment. This was where I would finally close the door on that chapter of my life. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Ethan had already made his choice. He had made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. I had been through too much to ever go back. I blocked his number and turned off my phone. As I walked down the street, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of the past was no longer holding me back. I was free. I had always been someone who believed in second chances. In the past, I would have tried to forgive Ethan, to see the good in him despite the betrayal. But this time, something was different. The pain of his actions, his cold indifference, his abandonment, his choice to be with Sarah, had shaken me to my core. It had shown me the depth of his lack of respect for me, and for the first time in my life, I realized that love could not and should not be sacrificed for someone who didn't value it. The decision wasn't easy. It never is, especially when emotions are involved. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone. Ethan's last message, so full of regret, was still on the screen, his words begging for forgiveness. But I had nothing left to give him. Not anymore. For the past few days, I had been wrestling with the idea of cutting him off completely. A part of me wanted to respond, to scream at him, to demand answers. But then I remembered all the times I had asked him for honesty, for love, for loyalty, and all the times he had failed to deliver. I had been the one left in the dark, the one betrayed by both him and Sarah, and I wasn't going to allow myself to go back to that place. No more late-night tears, no more wondering where it all went wrong. No more thinking about the what-ifs. I was tired of living in the past. Taking a deep breath, I tapped the screen, selected his number, and blocked it. Then I deleted his contact, erased all the memories that were tied to him. For the first time in years, I felt the weight on my chest start to lift. The shackles of the past were gone. It wasn't just about ending things with Ethan. It was about reclaiming myself, about learning how to live without him, without anyone. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt empowered. I was finally free. Chapter 6: Living for Myself. The days that followed were a blur of self-discovery. I hadn't realized how much of myself I had given up in the relationship. I had compromised my dreams, my passions, my identity, all in the name of love. I had wanted to be the perfect partner, the perfect wife, but in doing so, I had lost sight of who I was. Now, with Ethan out of the picture, I had the space to rediscover myself. I spent my weekends doing things I had always wanted to do but had never made time for. I signed up for a pottery class, something I had always been curious about. I took long walks in the park, enjoying the solitude and the quiet. I visited art galleries, went to the movies alone, and began to appreciate the little joys of life that I had once neglected. At work, I threw myself into my projects with newfound passion. I was no longer carrying the emotional baggage of a broken relationship. The woman who had once questioned her worth, her ability to succeed on her own, was now confident and driven. My colleagues noticed the change, and it felt good. For the first time in years, I was no longer defined by my relationship with Ethan. I was defined by who I was becoming. As I continued to heal, I realized that cutting Ethan off had been the hardest decision I'd ever made, but also the best. There was no room for him in my life anymore, no place for the man who had broken my heart and shattered my trust. I was building a new future, one that had nothing to do with him. This time, I wasn't going to wait for someone else to make me feel whole. I was going to do it on my own. Chapter 7: The New Beginning. It had been months since I blocked Ethan's number. Life was quieter, less complicated, but that didn't mean I had forgotten about the pain. The wounds were still there, lingering beneath the surface, but they no longer controlled me. The sting of betrayal had softened into a dull ache, something that I could live with. I had started to consider the idea of dating again. It wasn't something I was rushing into, but I wasn't afraid of it anymore. I had become comfortable with my own company, but I knew that love, in its true form, could still be part of my future. One evening, after a long day of work, I went to a local cafe to unwind. It was one of my new favorite spots, a cozy place with soft lighting and soothing music. As I walked in, I spotted a man sitting alone at a table by the window, a notebook open in front of him. He looked familiar, though I couldn't place him. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and there was something in the way he looked at me, gentle, warm, with no agenda. He smiled and waved me over, and I found myself walking toward him without hesitation. "Emily, right?" he asked, as I took a seat across from him. I blinked in surprise. "Do we know each other?" "I think we've met before, a few years ago." "At a work event?" "I'm Daniel." It took a moment for the name to register, but once it did, I remembered. Daniel was a colleague of mine from a previous job. We hadn't kept in touch after I left, but I had always thought he was a genuinely kind person. We talked for hours that evening, exchanging stories about our lives, our careers, and the things that had shaped us into who we were. Daniel didn't ask about my past relationship with Ethan, nor did he make me feel like I had to explain myself. He was just present, in the moment, listening and understanding. As the evening drew to a close, he walked me to my car. I was surprised by how easy it had been to talk to him, how natural everything had felt. "This was nice," I said, smiling at him. "I agree," he replied, his voice warm. "Maybe we can do it again sometime?" I nodded. "I'd like that." And just like that, the door to my heart, which I had shut so tightly for so long, was gently opened again. This time, I wasn't letting someone in because I needed them. I was letting someone in because I wanted to. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it would take me. Emily couldn't remember the last time she had felt so light, so free. Every morning, she woke up with a sense of possibility, a renewed sense of herself. Her life, once marked by betrayal and heartache, was now taking on a new shape. Daniel's presence in her life brought an unexpected sense of calm and security. They met frequently, sharing casual coffee dates and long walks through the park, their conversations filled with laughter and thoughtful musings. It was different from anything she had ever experienced with Ethan. There was no pressure, no expectations. Just two people getting to know each other. She found herself savoring the moments they spent together, marveling at how effortless it all seemed. With Daniel, she didn't feel like she had to wear a mask or hide parts of herself. He was genuinely interested in her, her dreams, her fears, her quirky habits. There was no judgment, only curiosity and warmth. One afternoon, as they sat in a cozy cafe, Daniel looked at her with a soft smile. "You know, I've never met anyone quite like you, Emily. I mean, not only are you incredibly smart and strong, but you're also kind, which is rare these days. I don't know how you've survived everything you've been through, but I admire you for it." Emily felt a rush of warmth in her chest. She had been waiting for this kind of affirmation, but she never realized how much she needed it until now. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling her heart flutter. It was moments like this that made her realize how far she had come, how much healing she had already done. Daniel was not the answer to all her problems, but he made the process of moving forward seem so much more bearable. As their connection deepened, Emily began to let go of the pain that had once clouded her life. She stopped thinking about the man who had broken her heart and the woman who had betrayed her. Ethan and Sarah were no longer occupying space in her mind. With Daniel, she was free to explore a future that was entirely her own. But as with all things that seemed too perfect, fate had other plans. Chapter 8: The Past Returns. It was an ordinary Thursday afternoon when everything came crashing back into her life. Emily was walking out of the building where she worked, phone in hand, when she saw him. Ethan. He was standing near her car, looking at her with that same familiar look of sorrow and regret. For a moment, Emily froze, her heart pounding in her chest. "Emily," Ethan said, his voice shaky. "Can we talk?" She felt an overwhelming rush of emotions, anger, confusion, and sadness, all swirling inside her at once. But more than anything, she felt the sting of betrayal. The man standing before her was the same one who had broken her heart, who had chosen Sarah over her. The man who had begged for forgiveness after destroying everything they had. "What are you doing here, Ethan?" Emily asked, her voice cold. "Why are you here?" Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes pleading. "I made a mistake. I know I hurt you, hurt us, but I've realized that I can't live without you. I've never stopped loving you. Please, Emily. Let's start over. Let me make things right." His words were an echo of all the promises he had made before. Emily had heard them all before, and yet, she couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow for the person she once loved. But that person was no longer the man standing in front of her. "No, Ethan," she said firmly, her voice unwavering. "You had your chance. You made your choice, and now I'm living my life without you. You hurt me in ways that can't be undone. I've moved on, and I won't let you back in." Ethan's face contorted with frustration. "Emily, you can't just throw everything away. I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but please, don't throw away what we had. You owe it to us." But Emily shook her head, stepping back. "I don't owe you anything. You lost that right when you betrayed me. I'm done." As she turned to walk away, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. This was it. No more looking back. No more wondering if she had made the right choice. Ethan was in the past, and that's where he would stay. However, as she reached her car, Ethan's voice called out again, louder this time. "You'll regret this, Emily. You're just running away because you can't handle the truth. You'll never be happy without me." She refused to turn around. Ethan's words were empty now. But just as she got in her car, the sound of Sarah's voice reached her ears, sharp and venomous. "Don't be so full of yourself, Emily," Sarah sneered, walking toward her with a smug look on her face. "You were never good enough for him. Look at you now, no man will ever want you again after what you've done." The words hit Emily like a slap in the face. But she didn't let them get to her. Not anymore. She had already cut her ties with both of them, and nothing they said could change that. Chapter 9: The Final Straw. As Emily started the engine and began to drive away, she felt an overwhelming sense of finality. She was done. Done with Ethan, done with Sarah, done with everything that had once held her back. But she didn't expect what happened next. A few days later, Ethan showed up at her office, this time with Sarah by his side. He didn't even wait for her to greet him before he started speaking. "I see you've moved on so easily," Ethan said, his voice full of bitterness. "How cute. You think you're so much better off without me. But I'm not the one who's going to suffer in the end." Sarah, standing beside him, smirked. "Yeah, maybe now you think you're some kind of queen, but you're just a joke. No one's going to want you. Look at you. Pathetic." Emily's heart sank, but she didn't let their words affect her. Instead, she turned to Daniel, who had just walked in behind her. His expression was cold, his eyes locked on Ethan and Sarah. "Are you really going to let them talk to you like that?" Daniel asked, his voice low but protective. "You don't have to take this from them." Ethan and Sarah exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for Daniel's presence. Daniel's protective stance only seemed to make them angrier, but he didn't back down. "I've been standing by Emily's side through all of this," Daniel continued, his tone firm, "and I'm not going to let you or anyone else treat her like this." "Not anymore." Ethan scoffed. "You think you're some kind of knight in shining armor, don't you? You're just a placeholder. She'll realize soon enough that I'm the one she truly needs." But Emily, her heart swelling with gratitude for Daniel's support, stepped forward, cutting them off completely. "No, Ethan," she said, her voice steady and resolute. "You've had your chance, and you've proven exactly who you are. I've moved on, and I'm never looking back. This is where you both exit my life. For good." As she spoke those words, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders, the last remnants of the past finally fading away. With Daniel standing beside her, she knew she was ready to step into the future, one that was hers and hers alone. Chapter 10: A New Beginning. The days after cutting ties with Ethan and Sarah were like a breath of fresh air to Emily. Each morning, she woke up with a renewed sense of hope, knowing she was no longer tethered to the shadows of her past. Her life was her own again, and she was ready to embrace it fully. Daniel was by her side every step of the way, offering unwavering support and care. Their connection had deepened over the months, evolving from a blossoming friendship into something stronger, something neither of them could ignore. Daniel made her feel seen and valued in a way no one had before, and Emily found herself slowly, but surely, falling for him. It wasn't just about comfort, it was about understanding and mutual respect. They had built something real together, a foundation Emily never thought she could have after everything that had happened. They laughed more, shared their hopes and dreams, and most importantly, they healed together. One sunny afternoon, while walking through the park where they had spent so many of their early days together, Daniel stopped in front of her. The air was crisp, and the sky was a beautiful blue, reflecting the new beginning they were about to embark on. "Emily," Daniel began, his voice soft but filled with determination, "you've taught me what love really means. You've shown me how to heal, how to love without reservation, and most importantly, you've made me want to be the best version of myself. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Emily's heart swelled as she looked into his eyes, seeing nothing but sincerity and affection. Without hesitation, she smiled brightly, her voice full of emotion. "Yes, Daniel. I love you too. And I want that too. I want to build a life with you, free from the past, and full of love, trust, and happiness." Daniel's eyes lit up, and before she could react, he gently pulled out a small box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a beautiful ring, simple, yet elegant, symbolizing the life they were about to create together. "Will you marry me, Emily?" he asked, his voice filled with hope and vulnerability. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she nodded, unable to find words that could fully express the depth of her emotions. All she could do was hold him close, whispering, "Yes, yes, I will marry you." The joy they both felt in that moment was overwhelming. It wasn't just about the engagement or the ring, it was about everything they had been through to get here, everything they had healed from together. This was the beginning of their forever. Chapter 16, Surrounded by Love. The journey to the wedding day felt like a beautiful dream. Both of their families, who had initially been hesitant about their past relationships, came together in full support, embracing the couple with open arms. Emily's parents, who had once been worried about her well-being in her past marriage, were overjoyed to see her so happy. They saw the love in Daniel's eyes and knew that this time it was different. Daniel's parents were equally thrilled, welcoming Emily into their family with open hearts. They had witnessed Daniel's transformation throughout their relationship, and they were delighted to see him so happy with Emily. The two families came together, not as separate entities, but as one, celebrating love, healing, and new beginnings. The wedding day arrived, and Emily felt more at peace than she ever had in her life. The ceremony was intimate, held in a beautiful garden with close friends and family gathered around them. Daniel stood at the altar, his eyes shining as he waited for Emily to walk down the aisle. When she finally appeared, dressed in a simple yet elegant gown, his heart skipped a beat. She was everything he had dreamed of and more. Emily felt a tear slip down her cheek as she walked toward him, her heart pounding in her chest. In this moment, all the pain, all the heartache, seemed like a distant memory. She was here, standing before the man who truly loved her, the man she had chosen to spend the rest of her life with. "I promise to love you through every high and every low," Daniel said, his voice full of emotion. "I promise to be your strength when you feel weak, your joy when you need comfort, and your partner through every challenge life throws our way. Together, we'll face everything that comes our way." Emily's voice trembled as she said her vows. "I promise to love you with everything I have, to support you, and to never let go of this love. I will stand by your side no matter what, and together, we will build a future full of hope, laughter, and love." As they exchanged rings and sealed their vows with a kiss, the crowd erupted into applause, but it was the feeling between Emily and Daniel that truly mattered. This was it, the beginning of their forever. The weeks following the wedding were filled with excitement, love, and anticipation for the future. Emily and Daniel had everything they needed, each other. They settled into their new home, a cozy apartment in the city where they began to build a life that was theirs alone. They worked together, laughed together, and most importantly, supported each other through the ups and downs of life. Every day felt like a blessing, a gift they had fought for and earned. And with each passing day, Emily realized just how far she had come from the woman she once was, the one who had been broken by betrayal, unsure of her future, lost in the shadows of the past. Now, she was whole. She had her love, her support, and her future, everything she had ever wanted. End of story.